So you think the Democratic Party cares about Black people? Believe it or not, Rex, I think that tweet is part of the problem. Do you feel like we could have addressed this homeless issue much sooner? You have to speak a word, make it a good one.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back to The Word. Once again, I'm Jackie Ray. Hopefully you are following the Long Beach Post on a daily basis, and you saw that we have this new app that is really amazing. It's called Shop Long Beach. It really, to me, seems like it's geared to really help local businesses and you, as residents of Long Beach, find those local businesses and find new shops. But with any app, there has to be someone who creates the app, makes it work, makes it function properly. And I have the man who did that right here with us today. His name is D.W. Ferrell. His company is called Localite, and he is responsible for creating that app and hopefully getting you to some new places that you can frequent often because you can just have access to all that. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
I'm so glad you're here. We met at the announcement, the city's announcement for Shop Long Beach.
Yeah.
I thought it was amazing. I thought it was such a great idea. It seemed like such an innovative idea, but this is something that you are very well versed in, and Long Beach isn't the first time you've done something like this. So kind of give me some background as to how you even got into this space. Did you start coding? Like, how did you get on this road?
Yeah, well, I started coding when I was 11. Do you want to know what I did when I was 12?
Did you really start coding at 11?
Yeah. Yep.
So how does an 11-year-old decide, you know what?
You want the backstory?
I do.
Yeah, well, the quick context is the current story is right now, small businesses are challenged by big chains.
Right.
And they all have their apps. And guess what? They work. Starbucks in the last earnings call said that 57% of their revenues in the US went through their rewards program and app.
No way.
And so what about all the 95% of businesses that are independent? Doesn't make sense for consumers to have 30 or 40 apps on their phone. So with Localite, we're uniting independent businesses in one app, giving them the tech that Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts and
Right.
and Chick-fil-A have, which is payments and rewards. But it's also driven by our mission. We're a public benefit corporation, and we're also a fintech. And we can delve into each of these, but that's like the lay of the land.
What's fintech?
Financial technology, Cash App, Venmo, Zelle. These are fintech. And there's a newer breed of impact-driven companies using tech, mixing finance to do good. Greenwood is an example. Banking for the Black community. There's some other mission-driven ones, even in town, that are using tech but trying to make an impact.
Right.
And so our impact is focused on supporting independent small businesses. Don't need to be small,
Right.
but independent.
That's interesting you say that, because I remember I had this moment in my life where I was like anti-fast food. Like, I'm not going to eat any fast food no matter what it is. And then somehow, I don't know how, but I got this text message that said, oh, did you know Chick-fil-A has an app? And I was like, what? And I downloaded it and I was like, oh my God, this is so much more convenient than being in that long line. And it instantly prompted me to give up my whole I'm not eating fast food thing to now the convenience of it makes it. So that technology, do you feel like as a society we just need everything to be convenient and that's why it's driven that way?
So as a tech company, you need to know, are you building something that people need? Are they going to use it? You might do surveys, you do tests, and you see what works. So very early on, and I'm going back a ways, we did a survey. Is it discounts that make you make a different decision about where you shop? Is it convenience? Is it something else? Hands down, convenience. And that explains why around 66% of U.S. Americans are members of Amazon Prime, paying members.
Yeah.
And so how can we bring some of that technology? And what you said is behavioral science. It's behavioral economics, and this idea of a nudge. So Richard Thaler, he is an economist, and we can go down that path if you want.
Right.
But economist that has demonstrated how nudges functionally move people from awareness to action to make a different choice by putting something in front of them. And convenience is a huge one. And if you have that as something that actually changes the decision that somebody makes to shift their spending from a not doing fast food to doing fast food again, how can you use that power in a good way?
Right.
How can you shift the other way from Chick-fil-A to a local business? Well, usually an independent business, you don't think convenient. You don't think, I got 20 minutes for lunch. I'm going to do that, right? So how can we bring some of that convenience? And if you're competing on convenience, at least with payments, if that can be convenient, get your rewards, all that little hit of dopamine if you get your rewards, right? Then you don't have to compete on cost.
Right.
You don't have to compete on these other things, and you can win over customers with what they want, which is convenience.
So when I think of, going into the tech world, I don't think of going into that because you want to do good. I think going into it because it's profitable. Yeah. So how did you shift your thinking, or was that always from the time you were 11? Was that always your thought process? Is that I want to use this to give back?
Yeah, I would say we do need to go back. So, all right. So little DW, 11 years old, right? My dad ran a engineering firm. He built buildings. Okay. Half-time. He ran a nonprofit downtown working with unhoused individuals. We call it a church. It was a nonprofit. He had a co-pastor, a black co-pastor. The two of them tag team did some really great stuff to uplift where I was at in downtown San Diego when I was growing up. Growing up, we did have an extra bedroom. My brother was 10 years older, so he moved out much sooner. I'd say a third of the time as a homeless person who was living there. Helping them just get on their feet. And so that was the culture of how do we use resources to uplift the community. And so he literally would work his day job to fund the night, the weekend job, right? Working in the community. And then that for my dad, he went on to take the nonprofit to start a school in Africa, in Liberia. And so there was always this tension I saw, though, where the for-profit was funding the nonprofit, and you had two different boards and all sorts of stuff, and some tension there. So I would work with for-profit work, and I don't want to skip a decade or two, though. Because when I was 11, my dad also said, no video games.
Oh, really?
And but he said, but here's a programming book, here's a PC, or a VIC-20, I think it was. You can learn how to make your own game. Oh. So it was literally, you can play video games if you make your own. Okay. So it took me a while, but I made Klingon Attack just for myself. I programmed a little video game.
That's amazing.
So, but I realized, like, having that skill growing up, getting into college and what am I going to do, like, there wasn't a career path. The internet didn't exist yet when I started college.
Wow.
I know.
That's funny how fast technology has really moved, though, when you say it like that.
Yeah.
Like in your lifetime, you have seen growth spurts. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I went off to college in LA, and then the LA riots happened. And my friend was volunteering with a nonprofit in South Central, and it's called Breakaway. And what they were doing was basically like, there's an opportunity gap. We want to just train kids from this community in tech. And at the time, there's a new thing called the internet. And what do? We're building PCs and telling people how to access the internet. And could we bring free internet to this community? That was the vision of Breakaway. A guy named Joseph Loeb ran that. And
Okay.
so that was like, okay, this is my community. This is the kind of stuff that I love to do, mixing community and tech. So that's kind of my background. And I'd say all along, even when working for like big brands, big chains, because I did that work to get that money,
Right.
I would always be working with either independent small businesses, even pro bono or nonprofits, because like these tools that the big chains have and the budgets they have, it's democratizing if you can bring that to the independent businesses. Why that relates to now is we're a public benefit corporation, and that means that we have a mission baked into our bylaws for economic inclusion, and we measure that. We have to report to the states, and that actually has opened up doors because it aligns with economic development goals. Right. Like the city of Long Beach, incredibly progressive and successful at being progressive, and that's by choice. But we're in a kind of a small group of I guess progressive tech firms,
right,
trying to use tech for good.
Yeah.
There's hopefully more of them, but usually systems turn into oppression really quickly.
Very quickly. Yeah. I saw something that the government recently sent out an AI bot to try to find housing, and found that when they use names that people would associate with Black names or Latino names, those people would not be offered housing.
Because it's trained on an algorithm. And that algorithm is based on history of systemic racism. And whether it's coffee and the trading landscape behind coffee, and how pricing is configured for coffee, or whether it's the pricing for housing, there's systemic racism. So specifically like the appraisers, now this is not my industry, so I can talk,
Right.
but there's basically an association that governs appraisers and how they determine their policies. And it's about 30 people.
Okay.
And only one Black person on that council.
Oof. And
these are the people that set the rules for how to decide the value of housing. Now, if we're talking about generational wealth creation for your family, and there's two primary access points. One is to own a home and pass that wealth on to your family.
Right.
And another is to own your own business. Owning a home, you got to do weird things like when the appraiser shows up, have some white people and white looking art on the walls for it to get the valuation. Like these stories are not just coincidence, like it's built in. Getting back to what we built, shopping sounds like a simple thing, shop local. It's a good idea, but the numbers are really there because if we make purchases from Walmart, 14% of the money stay. I'll call them Mallwart just so I don't get sued.
Right.
We make purchases from Mallwart. See what I did there?
I like that.
Then only 14% stays in the local economy.
Right.
So
I don't think I realized that.
86% goes to HQ, executive compensation, overseas, right?
Right.
That's for big box stores. But nearly 4 times more money stays in the local economy at independent businesses, especially the restaurants. If they're sourcing from local farms, like it's 4.5 times more. So economically, it's not just about money leaving local economy, but it's also the secondary effects of they're hiring local web designers, they're hiring local delivery, they're hiring local bookkeepers, right? So all those executive things are also done in the community. And so there's, the Institute for Local Self-Reliance and the American Independent Business Alliance, AMIBA, have done research to show this, but it's not well-known math that if you support independent businesses, the whole economy thrives.
Right. I think it's interesting that you said that, because I learned so much just from the city's announcement of it. Even the was it Dainty Disco? Dainty Disco? That was the first time I'd ever heard of that business. And that whole corridor is just little small businesses. And then in that moment, it really dawned on me that I do go to places that I just am familiar with, and those typically are the bigger chains. And then in that moment, I instantly got it. I was like, if it was easier for me to find local businesses, I probably would do that.
Yeah.
And then, ta-da.
Yeah. Yeah. Discovery is a huge thing. If you go on Yelp, you search for a local business, it's going to show you the chains. Because guess what?
Yeah.
It's a bait and switch ad model.
It is.
Same thing, same experience if you go on Facebook or something, right? So we don't have an ad model. We have an economic development model. And so there's economics built into it that are just kind of in the back of, how it's run. But from the customer standpoint, they want to have the experience of, if I'm going to support a local business, I should be rewarded. If I'm going to go a little out of my way, wait a little longer for that sandwich, then I needed a little incentive. And so that's reasonable, because guess what? Those businesses want their those dollars, but it ends up that it's not more money, hypothetically, for a customer to shift their spending from the major chains to local businesses. And if they get rewarded through it, especially with a program like Shop Long Beach, then it can feel like you're getting paid dividends to shift your spending. I see it as something that provides risk takers in our community, the entrepreneurs, a way to get exposure, a way to have immediate placement among other businesses, and for people to find them, discovery. I mean, I've found places all over Long Beach that join the program. There's over 100 places where you can spend the rewards. It's called Local Cash. 110, I mean, in the last week, 10 more have joined. It's going to get to 200 by spring. But then also citywide, at over 800 businesses, you can earn just by submitting a receipt. Scan a receipt with the app. You can earn, I think the average is like $2 per purchase.
And then you can use that money anywhere?
And then so as soon as you get to 5,000 points, you're unlocking $20 in local cash back. And then you can spend it at those participating businesses.
That's a real incentive.
Yeah.
That's great. And it's so funny because my birthday was November 9th, and my brother was like, let's go to some place in Long Beach you've never been to. And it's exactly what you said. I Googled it. It sent me right to Yelp. And I'm like, I know all these places. So I had to call some coworkers who was like, oh, you should try, so people who've lived here. I've only been in Long Beach. I've been here for 2.5 years at the Post, but I've only lived in Long Beach for like 7 months. So I'm still learning my way. And this is what I realized about this app. This is perfect for people who are just coming to the city and really want to be a part, because I think our community is incredibly diverse and very unique in a lot of different ways. And Caitlin, our food reporter, she says that starting a restaurant is very difficult to succeed because of the overhead cost and and when I think about going out and having fun, the first thing I want to do is food. And I think I would even find it more rewarding to support a local business instead of a big franchise in that regard.
Yeah, seeing a local business and especially food, just seeing them as risk takers. They probably did a second mortgage on their home or went into debt to bring that to fruition.
Right.
And their goal is to create generational wealth. I mean, that's it. That's the American dream, right? It's what drives, I believe it's around 30% of immigrants start a business in the U.S. They are drivers of innovation. And a lot of them choose to do a local restaurant or local shop. And I mean, I can't imagine coming here, not having English as my first language and starting a business on top of that, going through all the red tape, minimum $200,000 investment in the kitchen section alone, just so you can open up your doors. Like, that's amazing. And so, supporting them, and what results is great product, but guess what? They don't have any money left over to do the marketing. And it doesn't make sense for them to each have an app. So meeting in the middle between what the customer wants, they want the convenience, right? They need to know about it. If they don't know it exists, then they're not going to be there in the first place. Like on the app is Casa Chotskis. Not tchotchkes, but chotskis. Is a Peruvian restaurant. I really love their pollo saltado. Probably not saying it right. And they also have the steak version of the saltado. But it's just a really cute little place on the west side where people who are in the east side don't typically cross over the 710, right? Absolutely. But now they have an incentive to go over there, and Chef Augustine will give them a fantastic meal, right? It's got a cute little courtyard, and then across the street right there, this is on Santa Fe in West Long Beach, is Vegan Castle. And they have sushi that's all vegan. I mean, it looks like sushi. Very vegan colorful. Sushi? Like rainbow rolls, all that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
And it's good.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's all on the app, right?
Yeah.
So you can also earn rewards by checking out new places. The city had a specific goal with Shop Long Beach, which is to prioritize the parts of town and the businesses that are often overlooked. And we baked that inclusion into the outreach that has happened already for the businesses that are currently on the app. The business improvement districts have their own initiatives, and so this complements that. But we started with a lot of the businesses that were outside of the business improvement districts. And for you guys playing on the bingo card at home, business improvement districts are like downtown Long Beach or Bixby Knolls, 4th Street Retro Row. Shoreline Village is it's more of an association. But anyway, we have about 10 of these economic development areas around town to support those businesses, which is fantastic. But there's still a lot of businesses that are outside of that support. So we started with those, and also there's two newer ones, the Uptown District, North Long Beach. And Justin Blakely is the new executive director there. Great guy. He used to work in Rex Richardson's council office. And then the Midtown District is just west of Cambodia Town, at roughly Anaheim and Long Beach Boulevard. That kind of area is Midtown. And so these are areas that we have to be very intentional and keep the businesses there, not just open, but thriving, because the typical track is, as some new development from real estate comes in, is to push out the business owners. We call it the bad side of gentrification. But thankfully, or not. It's not the best news, but thankfully, when Trader Joe's and other big chains look at the financial opportunity of putting in their big chain in parts of Long Beach, they don't see their customer, whatever they define their customer as. And so they don't make those investments. That basically means we don't see people with money who would be spending at Trader Joe's in, West Long Beach or even downtown. And so they don't put those stores in, but there's still a food desert in West Long Beach. There's opportunities for something like the Long Beach Grocery Co-op, which it's been, a long time coming up and doesn't have a location yet.
Yeah.
So, so how do we keep the existing businesses not just there, but also to survive growth and the rise in rent that is going to happen?
You've touched on so many things that I talk about a lot that are so problematic. I went to, and I didn't even do a story on this, which I probably should, but I went to a bunch of different grocery stores in different communities in Long Beach. And what I found was a Ralph's in one community that's more affluent does not have the same produce or food selection that one that's in, a not so desirable area. So to me, that's still a food desert, even though there's a Ralph's there. If I still have to drive to get fresh produce, not see mold on my cheese, then to me, that's a food desert. And it was, and I immediately had the thought of why is this? It's the same. To me, brand representation means more than just doing a disservice to a community. I wouldn't want my name on something that wasn't providing equal service to everyone.
Oh yeah. So Kroger and Ralph's and the grocery chains don't want their core brand, their high-priced brand associated with certain communities.
I could see, but
that's why they have their off-brand Food for Less, which is still Ralph's.
Oh, no way! I didn't know that.
Yes. And Kroger has a few of them as well, where we can't associate this with our upper tier brand because we have a certain clientele that likes that.
That is so offensive.
So we're gonna put a Food for Less there, and then we can put up the Espanol signs.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is systemic. This is the lay of the land, and we don't have to wait for someone else to fix it. Like we as a community can say, you know what? Like I love some of the small local markets in town, bodegas, that cater to their community. Cambodia Town has a couple that are on the app too. And they're sourcing things that you're not going to see even at a Food for Less.
Right.
And then it's not about cost, because if it's literally something you can't get at one of the big chains, then you own the market. La Truca de Mama is a newer one that the owner's all over TikTok. She's got this cute little market, and caters to her community.
That's perfect. I feel like you're providing answers for people that they don't even, because I know sometimes it's exactly like you said. I found that people are so, they want to make a good product, but they forget all these other aspects. How am I going to know you have a good product unless you advertise, right?
Yeah.
So how did you, let's backtrack a little bit.
Sure.
Localite, right? How did you come up with that name?
We're in 2023 right now. Let's go back to 2013.
Okay.
All right. So I started a nonprofit, and it was at WeLabs, which is a great little co-working space. Now owns Recreational Coffee, co-owner of Recreational Coffee. I was the first tenant for WeLabs, and along with some other, culture shakers that wanted to start businesses or nonprofits. So I started this nonprofit, but didn't even know what to call it yet. Just knew the impact that I was looking for. So we had a focus group at WeLabs, and out of it we had the name Localism. And so that was the nonprofit. And did a pilot program that didn't succeed. At the time I still was doing work with big chains, and so I was trying to use some of the technology that my team and I had built for big chains and democratize it. Like, how can we turn this into an app? And it was pretty early on, but as a nonprofit, just supporting local businesses, and what does that look like? Before the pandemic, opened up an incubator with about 150 local makers that really proved out the model, centralized transactions, and we shifted about $500,000, over $500,000 to those 150 businesses over 18 months.
That's amazing.
And there were parts of it that weren't scalable. I was paying too much for rent to, pull all these people together and all that kind of stuff. But the financial side, the tech that we could build around this cross promotion, because effectively you have 150 businesses, each of them have a customer list of 500, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's what, 75,000 contacts, if I'm doing my math right.
Yep.
And cross marketing can absolutely have an outsized impact without spending any ad dollars. Yeah. And so that worked, but I had a health issue. And so, and I'll go ahead and share because it's like part of my story, but basically I was misdiagnosed with bipolar and put on a bunch of meds.
Oh no.
And what was really happening was that I had a heart issue, and only about 60% of oxygen was going to my brain.
That's a huge misdiagnosis.
Yeah.
Goodness.
So within a matter of a few months, I was kind of a vegetable on, the kind of medicine that I think it was even a high dosage too. Long story short, I had to step away from everything, figure out my health, because I didn't know that it was a heart issue.
Right. How did you find that out?
Well, let's see. You're also not supposed to mix meds with alcohol.
Right.
And I was also very stressed and binge drinking.
Ah, okay. Yep.
So my wife basically took me to a recovery clinic, and I was on the meds. I was binge drinking, which had its own issue, and did a detox, and it ended up being a really great program just to clear everything, all those meds out of my system, and also learn cognitive behavioral therapy and how to deal with anxiety.
Right.
And so went through all that, but still only 60% oxygen going to my brain.
But you didn't know that yet.
Didn't know that yet. So I'm like, something's wrong. Or it was more people around me who love me, who are like, you don't seem like yourself.
Right.
And did lots of tests, and then figured out that I actually had broken something called chordae tendineae in my heart. And so I prepared for another several months for heart surgery, and thankfully found a surgeon who knew exactly what it was. And they were able to robotically go in through my side with this amazing machine called the Da Vinci machine. And I had 100% recovery, but it took like a year of not having any stressful work or anything like that. So, and then I had to slowly build up, getting back into potentially anxiety producing entrepreneurship. Right. Right?
Right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Because I went from willing to take on any risk, and even the risk for others, to I have to just mend. So it was, okay, what's something that you could, as a brand, you could be? Like if Google is something you do, like it's a verb, I'm going to Google that. Yep. I can be a Localite.
Oh, I like that.
And so it's an identity brand. But more than anything, it's for the community, just to have a sense of aligning your values with supporting your local community. So getting back into it from heart surgery, worked with, I'd say, about 10 different small businesses, just like, hey, you know, let's increase your revenue.
Right.
Here's things you're not doing. Some of them had issues with the bookkeeping, or they wanted to package the company to sell it, and all these kind of things that I knew from working with, by this point, a couple hundred independent businesses, and really wanting to turn as much of that as possible into a platform. And a big part that is missing from most businesses is the financial technology. And so really focused in on that, and made a prototype. During the pandemic, 2020, I was pitching it, and then the Long Beach Accelerator was starting, which is a great program. It's mature now, but at the time it was still coming together between CSUOB, the City of Long Beach, and Sunstone, which is a VC firm, financial management firm that John Chen founded, along with his partners, Stella Zhang, and now is run by John Keisler, who's the CEO.
Oh, okay.
So those were essentially the partners for the Long Beach Accelerator, and we were in the first class. Localite got accepted. That was spring of 2021. Still in the pandemic.
Yeah.
But since I already had, by that time, 7 years or so of running a nonprofit, connecting with other like-minded people across the states,
Right.
and had a fiscal receiver partnership with the American Independent Business Alliance, I was able to get meetings with decision makers in DC, in Florida, Salt Lake City, in Atlanta, and Cincinnati, and they gave a lot of feedback, similar to the WeLab first community feedback,
Right.
like getting feedback and having that drive our priorities has been huge.
Yeah, you have such a great story from your foundation of, if you want to play video games, you got to build your own. Plus, by the way, we're going to help people to, even with your health condition, it's still technology that basically helped you through that. Your story is, you need to write a book, sir. This is a very, very, and just your whole demeanor, like sitting across from you and hearing you speak. It's always fascinating to me as a Black woman. I always feel like we have so much responsibility to educate the public on systemic racism, and half the public who doesn't look like us doesn't want to hear it. So to sit across from you and you're actually teaching me about parts of systemic racism that I wasn't aware of is it gives me goosebumps. You have such an amazing story. I'm so glad and honored to be sitting across from you and just sitting here like a sponge and learning from you. This is great. I'm having a great time.
It is a self-challenge to be a good role model for the next generation, millennials and Gen Z, but we need more allies who have the knowledge,
Right.
and want to connect the dots, right? So it's, to me, it's my community, right? But also, some really important friends like Lisa Mae Brunson founded Wonder Women Tech, and she's Black, she's a woman in tech, and really saw a vision for how do we get more women in tech, right? And so, similar, about 10 years ago, she had this idea, but to do a big conference. And so there was an opportunity to introduce her to the mayor at the time, Robert Garcia. I made that intro, and he saw that vision, said, we're going to give you free conference space at the Long Beach Convention Center. And now that whole program is international.
That's amazing.
The Wonder Women Tech Conference is not just here, but they've had conferences in DC. They're going to be doing another one in London. And and that's tech and that's mission. And I see Long Beach just attracting that kind of mindset.
Right.
And you know, for myself also, I want to attract good talent for my startup.
Right, yeah.
And so so like being out there and saying the story is hopefully inspiring to just, you know, for the people who are interested in tech and wanting to make a difference with their creativity or their, you know, whatever it is, like stay here in Long Beach. Let's build that community. This is Space Beach. This is, you know, where we have all the resources as a city to be independent. The middle class is shrinking day by day. And so, you know, what's the pathway to generational wealth? It is the easiest pathway is doing an independent business.
Right. Absolutely.
And you might, you know, you might go belly up. You might lose your house. So supporting the risk takers, you know, that's what I'm out here to talk about is like, let's keep our unique, funky, weird local businesses, you know, in good shape.
Yeah. Thank you so much, DW. This is great.
Thank you.
I'm going to put everything, the link that you guys need to sign up or join. I'm actually going to, I did join. I did put the app on my phone. I forgot about that, but I'm definitely going to go out and about on the weekend and find, because again, not being here for my entire life, there's so much of Long Beach that I don't know. And this app is just going to help me explore and find cool places. And I hope you guys will do that too. And I hope you guys, if you want to take risk, I'm hoping that you realize Long Beach is the best place to do that, because you're going to have the support. So you don't have to leave Long Beach to do that. Stay home, support Long Beach. Thank you again, DW, for coming on. This has been, and don't forget to start writing that book. You do need to write that book. Once again, I am Jackie Ray. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, if you haven't become a member of the Long Beach Post, you need to do that for as little as $8.99 per month. You can support what we do here. You can do that by going to lbpost.com/join. And remember, if you have to speak a word, make it a good one. We'll see you next time.